And this year's draft, pick number 29 might just be the best place to be. Still plenty of talent, maximum flexibility, and a shot at a game changer without having to pay the top 10 pick price tag. That and more right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, Commanders fans? Welcome into today's episode of Locked On Commanders. I'm your host, David Harrison, here with you every Monday through Friday. Your friend, your eyes, your ears on the ground, covering the Washington Commanders, doing so for WUSA9.com and Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. I want to thank you for coming through today. On today's episode, we are talking with Logan Paulsen, former NFL tight end, current analyst for the Washington Commanders, and we're going to be talking about the return to RFK. We're going to be talking about breakout second-year players, including me asking Logan if it's too early to talk about Jayden Daniels potentially competing for the MVP award. But we're all going to start, of course, with what's coming up this weekend, pick number 29 of the NFL draft. Every day, those of you who come through every single day, a special thank you to you as always for coming through every single day. And if anybody out there is not already, please subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you are listening to today's episode. If you're new to the program, thanks for finding us. Hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully you come back again. Locked On Commanders is a daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers, you can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. We've got a lot to talk about, so let's not waste any time. Let's bring in Logan Paulsen from the Take Command podcast, the Command Center, and of course, find his big board before the NFL draft on commanders.com. And we're just going to get right to the meat of the conversation with Logan, asking him right away, pick number 29. You're the GM. You're on the clock. Who is there in the most advantageous scenario for you?
Yeah, I think probably Donovan Ezeiruaku from Boston College. Donovan Ezeiruaku, Mike Green, I think that type of player. Obviously, the character stuff with Mike Green. If the more teams I talk to, they seem to be okay with that. They think they're more accusations as opposed to an actual problem. So, yeah, those guys, I mean, I think they just bring tremendous pass rush juice. I think they bring tremendous physicality and upside. So those are two edge rushers I'd like to see. Obviously, Donovan Jackson, Tyler Booker from Alabama, the two guards would be interesting there as well. But I think the edge rushers are guys that really stick out to me as players that would really make this defense significantly better and have the potential to be something special, especially, picking late at 29. That's not always the case. So.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you. Ezeiruaku has very, very, I won't say quickly, but he's grown to become like one of my favorite guys in this year's class. Yeah. And if he was going to be there at number 29, I'm team trade back. We'll talk about the trade scenario here in just a little bit. I'm team trade back, but like at number 29, if Ezeiruaku's there, I'm like, I don't know if you trade back. I think Ezeiruaku might be one of those guys. I tried to get a number out of Adam Peters yesterday. I tried to get him to give me like, oh, we got 4 guys at a 29. If they're there, we're taking them. But he knows how to handle media, so he ducked that. He acknowledged that they have those guys, but he didn't tell me how many, which is why he's good at his job. But let's get to the position groups, right? Like, how do you rank the position group needs? Because obviously that's always a big part of the conversation this time of year is need versus talent and all that stuff. But do you have a specific group need ranking, or do you just have a list of positions you think they might need to fill?
Yeah, so I don't really have I think that's the great thing that Adam Peters has done this offseason is I don't think you absolutely need anything. I think an upgrade on offensive line would be great. I think an upgrade in the receiver room would be great. Defensive line, same thing. Linebacker, running back, it's all great. I think right now this is the brilliance of how he's constructed the roster leading into the draft is we literally can go best player available. Like I can literally look at my big board and say, this is a player that's going to make us better. It's going to make us more talented. It's going to make us younger. And we have a cost-controlled asset now for 5 years. Let's pull the trigger. Let's get that done. So that's where I'd say I feel like people keep asking me need. Edge rusher, the reason I threw that out to start is I just think there's a lot of first-round edges. I think they're going to get pushed down, hopefully, into that 29 range. So, like the Nick Gordons, the Landon Jacksons, those kind of, even Shamar Stewart potentially down in that kind of range seem very, very likely because there's just a lot of them. I think I had, if I remember correctly, like 11 edge rushers going somewhere in that first, early second round range. So that's why I kind of lean in that direction. But again, like if they had a high grade on a defensive back, for example, great. tie grade on a guard, awesome. So none of that would surprise me, but a lot of that stems from the composition of the draft and the current roster construction as done by Adam Peters.
Yeah, absolutely. We always talk about, Adam Peters, I think his favorite word is optionality. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And every time I write that into an article, I was gonna say, every time I write an article, it highlights it. And it's like, this isn't a word, bro. So I think that might be an Adam Peters. Maybe it's a John Lynch word. I don't know where, maybe it came from the Broncos, the Patriots, who knows? But I love the word. And I love the fact that it so neatly encompasses what every GM wants to do every offseason, right? But I agree with you, man. I think Adam has done a great job and the staff over there, Lance and all those guys, because every time I do a mock draft on the show, without a doubt, I get a comment of, I can't believe you didn't draft this position. And I look at this, I'm like, that's just a collection of being aware that literally you can go anywhere, because every position I draft running back in the first round. I can't believe you didn't go corner. I go corner. I can't believe you didn't go receiver. You know what I mean? Just so on and so forth. And it just shows that they literally could go anywhere in that first round. You kind of talked about Mike Green.
I'd like to double click on that in a second, if that's all right. Yeah. 100%. So I think that's one thing that if there's one thing that I've learned from doing draft boards and stuff over the last couple of years is, and in this draft specifically, the difference between I've said this a couple of different places now, but I'm saying here, the difference between pick 5 and pick 55 in this year's draft is not a lot, right? It's very marginal, and I think so it really comes down to what the team values, what their interview process has been like, and the guys that they want to be commanders. So that's the thing. It's like, if that's the thing about this draft year that I'm so excited about, is I'm excited to see who, all this information that comes out about the defensive linemen or the corners or all these different players. When Adam makes the pick, I'm 100% confident that he fits the Commander's mold. And I think that's why this is so interesting. It's he could pick someone that, for example, there's Shamar Stewart's a really interesting example. There's certain outlets that have him at 61. There's certain outlets that have him at 8. Neither one of those are wrong. It's just depends on who's viewing the film. So to me, just trust Adam Peters, trust his board. He's done way more work on it than you fans and me and Dave, obviously. So I think there's just something I wanted to call attention to, because it's incredibly frustrating, because you're like, I've seen a highlight of this guy. He's really good. I heard Mel Kiper talk about this guy. He's really good. But there are probably 200 guys in this draft that are good football players that can make an impact on an NFL roster. And I'm going to trust the guy that's watched 500 guys and got that list down authentically to where it's at.
Yeah, man, I had this conversation, so I don't do a full big board. I know you have your big board up on commanders.com, and it's awesome, because I actually tell my listeners the reason I don't have a big board, a draft big board, is because you have to watch at least 100 players, in my opinion, to have a big board. And I'm not watching 100 players. Your big board is 100 players. So I love it. You literally hit that number that I tell these guys, look, I'm not watching 100 guys worth of tape. Now I do
I'll tell you this, to get to 100 though, you need to watch 170, because you got to be these guys are going to have points of comparison. So I don't know, it takes forever. So don't do it. Never do it. It takes way too much time, but
I mean, it's a labor of love, right? More to come still with Logan Paulsen, including conversations about the sophomore on the Washington Commanders roster, most likely to take the biggest jump in the coming season. That coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Commanders is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, you place your first $5 bet, you will get $250 in bonus bets if that bet wins. FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into player props. I love my same game parlays, but if you want to go with just the series winners in the West, the Los Angeles Lakers, Minnesota Timberwolves are -104 to win that series. The Houston Rockets are +280 underdogs to beat the Golden State Warriors. The Denver Nuggets are +158 underdogs to beat the Los Angeles Clippers. And the Oklahoma City Thunder are -50,000 favorites to beat the Memphis Grizzlies. Those are some really steep odds. Don't miss out on whatever it is you want to bet on. Head over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Continuing here on Locked On Commanders with our conversation with Logan Paulsen. I do have some position group big board. So I've got pass rushing edge commanders big board, right? So I kind of whittle it down a little bit so I can have this very, very focused group. But like you said, like I've got 7 guys on there, but I'm watching 14 dudes to get those 7 at least. And it's 3 games a minimum. And that's if I don't have questions after those 3 games. If I've got more questions after those 3 games, now I got to watch 4 or 5. And Shamar Stewart is actually a player. I'm glad you brought him up because he's a dude that, like, you know, I always say this, like, if scouts are going to tell you that sack production in college translates to the league, then I kind of worry, does lack of sack production translate to the league? And whether it's overall career or whether it's a guy, because, you know, there's 2 Texas A&M prospects and it's, you know, you transfer from one school to another school. Yeah, the competition theoretically goes up, but the production goes down. Is that concerning? Things like that. But then you watch the tape and, like, there's so many sacks, there's so many TFLs that if he can just be taught how to finish a little bit better, those turn into legit, like they're close in college, but they can turn into legit sacks and production in the NFL. And you wonder if a guy like Ryan Kerrigan gets his hands on them, is that what is really going to close that gap? So it's really super interesting. I want to get your take, Logan. Well, I know your take, so I want you to share with my audience in case they haven't heard it in any of the other areas you've talked about this, because I always try to make sure, and I'm not perfect, so I might have slipped up and called what I do a scouting report. If I did, I was wrong because I don't scout. I evaluate talent. That's what at least that's what I try to do, right? That's what I hope I'm doing. Talk to everybody about the difference between talent evaluation and scouting, because they're not the same thing.
Yeah, to me, this is one of the main things about this offseason. And like you look at guys like Dane Brugler, who does the Beast, like he's actually scouting. So he's going to talk to their parents. He's going to talk to their coaches. He's going to talk to the trainers. He's going to delve into what makes the player tick, at least kind of tangentially. And that's ultimately what scouts are. Like I had a really, really fascinating conversation with a head of scouting for a team. And he just said, I'm an investigator. I'm a detective. Like coaches don't need me to tell them who can play in the NFL. Now with PFF and all these different, the way that the film is digitally stored, like they can figure that out for themselves. When they come to me and be like, player X, what's he like? I need to have something for him. Like, you know, we talked about a little bit about Mike Green. Like they are going to investigate the scout, the kind of legal department for the team. They investigate that stuff. They give it to the scout, and the scout gives the report, because the scout has followed this guy for 4, sometimes 5 years, 6 years in some cases. If you're Tyler Shuck, right, the quarterback from Louisville, like they've they know these players in a way that me, you, normal media, kind of tangential media people, there's no way we can understand. And that's the thing that makes a difference. So it's interesting. We just did our final like mock draft on Take Command, and Craig, kind of parsed it out in a very specific way. And we had, like Shamar Stewart versus Donovan Ezeiruaku. And so on film, obviously, like one's an athletic freak, one's that got the pass rush upside. But the thing that to me is ultimately going to separate those guys in the Commanders' war room is what kind of guy is this? What kind of guys are these? And are they guys that I want to and I'm passionate about working with? And I think that's ultimately what it boils down to. So that to me is the difference between scouting, because most people watch the film, oh yeah, this guy can play in the NFL. Like it's hard, but it's not that hard. It's the other stuff that makes it really challenging. So that's the difference between scouting and talent evaluation. And again, that's why I always look at fans when they're like, this guy has to be the guy. It's like, you don't know that guy. You don't know anything about him. That's where like what they do is way more challenging than what we do.
Yeah, 100%. And you brought up Mike Green, that he's the perfect example for where I sit this type of year, because I'll tell my listeners, like, listen, if there's any smoke behind the accusations, and we're not going to rehash it all here on this program, on this episode, but if there's any smoke there, personally, like I feel like he comes off the board. However, 100%. I don't know if there is. So I'm not. So when I do my pass rushing edge big board, guess what? Mike Green is on that big board. Yes. Even though I'm telling my listeners in other episodes, if there's smoke there, he's coming off my board, because I don't know that information. So I'm not going to sit here and make that move as a talent evaluator.
And to that point, like this is, I call my buddies and we talk about guys, and Mike, and again, this is totally, because it's silly season, so people will tell you stuff they want to get out there. But it seems like teams tend to be more okay with whatever's going on with Mike Green. I don't know the nuances. I don't know the intricacies. I'm just saying person X told me that they're okay with it. Person Y told me they're okay with it. And just as to compare it to James Pierce, they were like, I'm really worried about that. So it's just, again, that's where the sweet science of this process comes in. I think those are 2 great examples that you laid out there.
Yeah, 100%. James Pierce, to your point, like, and where I sit in this world, he's a guy that I can actually reach out to some people and actually get some information on.
Nice.
And I form a more well-rounded, still not fully, still not, like I walk into the Commanders war room and I'm like, hey guys, let me tell you about James Pierce. They're going to laugh me out the building.
They'll be like,
because what I know in April, they knew in January, you know what I mean? But that kind of brings us into another topic. Like there are prospects that are higher risk, but also higher reward potentially if you reach that full potential. But then there are players that are maybe lower risk, right? You kind of know who they are, but you also know who they are, and there's not necessarily a whole lot of room for growth. Who are guys on kind of each end of that spectrum that you can think of from the players you've watched so far?
Yeah, so like Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia, is a guy like I know him. I feel very comfortable with his transition to the NFL. Matthew Golden, same thing. I know the player. Derek Harmon, to me, also the defensive tackle from Oregon, just safe. Mason Taylor, not Mason Taylor, tight end from LSU, but also Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan. Those guys to me are incredibly just like put the ball on the tee, get on base. Like that's what it's going to be because like they're good pros. Like they do the little stuff the right way, and so those are some guys that I think are the floor, and the floor is very comforting, right? But the ceiling is also not very high potentially. Like Mason Graham, I think is a really good example of this. Like I love the film, but I don't see top end pass rush from him. And ultimately, if you draft a guy at 5 or in the top 10 or in the top 15, like that's something you want, right? Is someone that can rush the passer. So that's where it becomes a little bit challenging. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you get guys like Nick Amon-Wari. You get guys like, Tetro McMillan is a little bit like that. Shamar Stewart's like that. Michael Williams from Georgia is also like that. These guys that you look at them and you're like, this is an NFL. Like the ceiling is sky high. It couldn't be higher. Yeah. But how sure are you that they're going to be able to develop and get there? And that becomes the $1 million question.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you bring up Ted McMillan and early last year in the too early mock drafts and everything, the Commanders were picking in the top 5 and all that stuff because nobody saw what was coming. And Ted McMillan was a guy that I kept telling people, like, listen, if the Commanders are picking, top 5, top 6, top 10, Ted McMillan is a guy that, go into my spiel about him. And everybody knows it's authentic because I'm an ASU guy. So for me to be praising an Arizona guy, I mean it. But now like he's, and his range has kind of fluctuated all throughout the draft process too, but he's certainly not a top 5 guy. We'll see if he ends up top 10. Usually he's in the teens right now.
But now, now there's the report coming out from, all these different draft guys that he's gonna go 5 to Jacksonville. Like we won't know till the night. So it's like, that's why this is a fun time of year.
And here's what's interesting. So I love that projection because Liam Cohen just came from the Buccaneers. And I know you only spent 1 year with the Buccaneers, right? But they had Mike Evans, they had Chris Godwin. Like Brian Thomas is more, I think, dynamic than Chris Godwin, at least as far as like deep ball explosive ability than Chris Godwin is. Though I think Chris Godwin is the more well-rounded receiver. But they don't have a Mike Evans in Jacksonville. I also look at the Raiders. They got John Spytek, their new GM, coming from Tampa, where he obviously has had all kinds of success with a guy like Mike Evans on the roster. And not to say that I think Tech could be the next Mike Evans, but he's got a similar, type of skill set, similar type of build and all that. So if they see that upside. Anyway, people aren't here for those types of talks. But let's talk about the Commanders trading. Adam Peters gave the classic GM comment, you know what I mean? We're open to everything, that we're not going to turn down any phone calls, things like that. Do you think there's a reality where they trade up? Because you only got 5 picks. So if you trade up, you're probably going down to 3 or 4 at a minimum. Or do you think that trading back is clearly the most likely option there?
Yeah, I mean, I think I obviously never say never, but in terms of percent chance, I think there's like a 2% chance they trade up. Like Abdul Carter takes a tumble and you're like, I want to trade up for him. Maybe that's the move. So very unlikely, but I never say never. So I understand what he's saying. And then trading back, I think, is the total move if you can do it. Like Fred Smoot, do the show with him, the Command Center show. And one of the things that he said was, I'd rather have 2 picks in the second than 1 pick in the first. And I think that's 100% right, especially this year. And so if you can trade back, I think you 100% should. I think the problem is everyone kind of knows that, like I said, from 5 to, 55, it's kind of approximately the same level of player. And so who's going to trade up and who's going to trade up for what? And everyone's like, the quarterbacks. If you watch the film of the quarterbacks and you talk to people around the league, I don't think they're as stoked on the class as the general media is. So that's where it's like, if you can, I think you should 100% do it. We want more picks. Like especially from like the top of the second, probably to the middle of the fourth round. Like, let's get some picks in there. But it's just challenging. I don't know if they'll be a dance partner is what I'm saying.
One more segment with Logan Paulsen coming up in our conversation, the potential return for the Washington Commanders to the RFK Stadium site. What does that mean in Logan's opinion? We will get to that coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Commanders brought to you in part by Amazon Fire TV. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. The latest technology elevates your playing with Wi-Fi, auto low latency mode, advanced technology. Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smooth, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds that you need to be able to stay competitive. So head over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. Wrapping up our conversation here before the NFL draft with Washington Commanders team analyst Logan Paulsen. Quarterback conversation. I think that's really the only spot to go because, like you said, I don't know that anybody. I mean, who knows? Maybe someone loves the athletic upside of Nicky Manwari and he's there at 29 and they want to trade up to get him. But there's some question marks on how good he's going to be in the league and all that stuff. I think quarterback is the spot. That's the next question I want to talk to you about because this is, we don't get like multiple questions. Unfortunately, we get like 2 questions each. If I had 3. I wanted to ask AP about this. I don't know how honest he would have been upfront about it on the record, but the Browns obviously are expected to pass on a quarterback in the first round. They could certainly use a quarterback to develop in the future, and if they're going to be a backup that first year, potentially that 5th-year option becomes more valuable. So maybe that's why they want to trade into the first round. But the Giants are also in that situation, and they're picking right after the Browns in the second round. So they got 34. The Browns have 33. We know AP is not afraid to trade inside the division.
Did you ask him the question about trading in the division?
I didn't. I wanted to. I'm actually, little peek behind the curtain. I'm actually going to see if maybe I can ask him, even though it'll be after the fact. So, it won't be like a current, but I'm going to see if I can ask him just his opinion after night 1. But when it comes to trading in the division, I'm with AP. Like I'm not scared to trade to a division rival. Yeah, however, if I'm trading back to let you come up and get a potential franchise quarterback that I'm going to have to face for the next 10 years, even if I don't believe that guy is going to be a franchise quarterback that I think you're taking, I think that might be where I flinch a little bit, Logan. Where do you stand on that potential prospect? If the Giants overpay to try to jump the Browns for that next quarterback off the board, are you okay trading back with the Giants knowing they might be getting their next franchise quarterback?
I think for me, yes. And it's not... This is year-to-year basis. Like if it was last year, answer no, absolutely not. We're not trading with anybody. Like we're sitting here, we're doing whatever we're going to do. Like Giants, you can go have a cup of coffee, do whatever I don't care. You're not trading it with me. Here, this year, like I am not that high on I think Cam Ward is the closest thing you're going to get to those guys in last year's class, right? I think he'd probably be the 4th to 6th guy, depending on where you fit at, but to me, there's a lot of questions. Jackson Dart's really talented, but a lot of questions about his ability to like read NFL defenses and handle adversity. I think, excuse me. I think Shedeur Sanders is interesting. I think he sees the field okay, but there's a technical rawness that makes me a little bit nervous. So if you wanted to trade up for him, go for it because I don't think that's the answer for you. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So if I felt differently about the class, if I felt differently about my evaluation of them, I'd maybe be a little bit more leery, but this year, no, I'm very cautious. I'm very welcoming to that because I don't think those guys are difference makers necessarily.
That's interesting. That is interesting. And that's not an angle I actually took with it. I just kind of stuck with the general quarterback, but you're right. I mean, either it's a Jalen Milroe or something like that, like Jalen's supremely athletic, obviously. Don't know if, whoever's going to be in New York can teach him how to throw better. Correct. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think that is an important part of that conversation. And I look at it, this was my last episode, but the Cleveland Browns got 2 third-round picks. So like the math, right? Like the Rich Hill trade value chart math or whatever says 33 and a 4th-round pick. That's about equal to the Commanders pick plus a little bit of inflation for the first round and the quarterback. But if you can get them into a little bit of bidding war, maybe you get that 3rd-round pick and you end up with 2 day 2s or 3 day 2s rather, 2 seconds and a third. That'd be amazing. So Logan, obviously new crop of rookies about to come in, right? But there's also young guys that this team's already trying to build a foundation around, those 2nd-year players. I did an anonymous poll of beat reporters. I got their answer. So before I give you their answer, I want to get your answer. Which 2nd-year player do you see having the potential to take the biggest jump?
I was talking to John Keim about this earlier this week, and I think the guy that sticks out to me is Jer'Zhan Newton, just because he didn't have an offseason. He was coming off the injury. And then I felt like as you watched later in the year, I thought I saw his needle pointing up a little bit. And I thought, man, if you get that guy a full offseason, full conditioning program, like let him kind of find his feet and get comfortable, like that could be someone who I think a lot of people had a 1st-round grade on and they got him in the 2nd round. So that ability, that talent, I think is really exciting. Jeremy McGee, because of the injury, like I really, really liked his film coming out of college. Like I really liked it a lot. I liked his stuff in practice and I wanted to see that happen. But obviously the knee injury, then he has the hamstring injury and never quite got going. So really excited about him. And honestly, some of those later round guys like Dominique Hampton, like really liked him when he played in the preseason against Miami. Jean Baptiste is another guy that flashed at points. I just remember his atomic bull rush in New Orleans, like creating pressure. Like there's some interesting pieces here down the roster that I'm excited. But I think Jer'Zhan would be the guy that I'd point to.
Yeah, I think Johnny Newton and Benson at the tight end were like tied. They got like the equal amount of votes from everybody to be that guy. But I mean, I'm glad you brought up Javonte. Like he's a guy, and it's dangerous getting into the stat scouting, department. But like when you look at the amount of production per snap he had, like it was actually really, really positive. And again, if he were to get more snaps, can he maintain it? All those questions. So it's not a direct, reflection of like, well, if you just magnify his snaps times 3, he's a sack leader. You know what I mean? That's not how that works, unfortunately. What's about Jayden taking a step in year 2? Because obviously no one's going to name him because he already took such a massive step in year 1.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Kurt Warner, the last 3 quarterbacks to win MVP awards in their 2nd NFL seasons. Can Jayden Daniels, in your opinion, be the next?
You know what? I'm sure he can. It's just like thinking about how good he played last year, how well he played last year. It's hard for me to imagine him being better. Because if he's better, man, like think about where this team's at. You know what I'm saying? Like if he's a better football player next year, it's almost like maybe I'm like got like the beat dog syndrome. I can't even think about it. You know what I mean? Because it just seems so like it'd be awesome. So I think he can do it just because he seems to be so like mentally wired the right way. Like his ability to be so process driven and work, that's what gives me hope that he can get it done. It's going to be very challenging. Defenses are going to be ready for him. You're going to be playing better football teams, better offenses, better quarterbacks. He's going to be under more pressure to perform because of these close games that they're going to be in next season, I think. But man, like if he does that, that would be so special for this city, for the team. Yep. So I hope so. Shoot, man. If that happens, man, I'll be doing backflips because covering games that they're winning is so fun. So hopefully that keeps going.
Yeah, man. The amount of stuff we got to see last year. I was talking to Candy Waller, Bowie TV yesterday while we were waiting for AP and Lance to come in, and just thinking back on the amount of stuff we got to witness last year is just amazing. I couldn't even think. I can't even imagine. It's like you said, like it's kind of hard to wrap your head around the possibility that like there could be more and there could be even better still to come. Like it's just hard to think about. Logan, I'll let you get out on this one. New reports, and I'm not going to ask you to confirm or do anything that would get you in trouble, obviously. But obviously, the reports are out there that DC and the team and the Congress and everybody are close to a new stadium deal. I just want to get your thoughts. The team potentially returning to the RFK site. You're a former Redskin, man. You know the history of this team. You know how much the fan base loves the history of this team. How much would that mean to everybody involved to return back to the RFK site?
I mean, I probably feel the same way you feel. I think it'd be amazing. I think it'd be amazing for DC, and I think that's really the thing I come back to. Just like to be back in that home there would be awesome. So I can't wait to see like if it happens. It's been such a long process. Like Sam Fortier had that great article about all the roadblocks and so, now that they're here, they're holding hands, they're doing the thing. It just gets me excited for the opportunity, and to be back in DC, I think would be pretty cool. So.
Yeah, 100%. Good plug for Sam 48. Another plug, Sam 48 just dropped a mock draft, history article at the Washington Post. So if you can read that, it is a great read. I tell Sam, he drops bangers. He drops a lot of bangers. This one is definitely a Sam 48 banger. Like you said, you were just on the Keim Report with John Keim, ESPN's beat reporter out here. So make sure you guys go check that out. Take Command podcast, check that out. The Command Center, pretty much anything Washington Commanders media related. Check out Logan, his big board on commanders.com. It is in a vacuum, right? Because that's my question. When I went to read, I'm like, is this Commander's big board or in a vacuum? But I saw Cam Ward on the list, so I was okay. This is in a vacuum, which I love. So everybody, go tell Logan where he's wrong, because we all know better.
Love that,
Logan, brother. I appreciate you, man. I'll see you this weekend.
Yeah, sounds fun, man.
All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Big thank you once again to Logan Paulson for coming through. Always a great time talking with Logan, whether it's on the air, whether it's off the air, doesn't matter. I always come away learning something, and hopefully you did as well. In the next episode of Locked On Commanders, it will be draft day. We're dropping one more pre-draft mailbag episode, so make sure you come back for that. In the meantime, if you want to submit questions, there's still some time as we sit here right now to get questions in. If you want to get in on the fun, become a Locked On Commanders insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. Not only are you going to be able to text me your questions, but you're also going to be getting texts from me all draft weekend. And of course, you'll be able to converse with me, your thoughts on the picks, my thoughts on the picks, a whole lot of stuff. We're basically going to be hanging out all NFL draft weekend. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NFL Draft, part of the NFL lineup, Locked On NFL Draft channel, Locked On NFL, all those fun places. You can see the Commanders pick that I made in the mock draft special on this channel, wherever you're getting this podcast, or on YouTube. As always, thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day, every day. Thanks for coming through every single day. For everybody out there, until we speak again, if you're out and about, please be safe, be kind, and I'll see you right here next time for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.